wanted to make a short video on how I felt about psychological labels. So one of the buzzwords presently, I've seen it a lot, and not in like psychological journals, just in the mainstream. And that particular label is narcissist. And I feel like it's really thrown around, along with words like sociopath. It's such a small percentage of the population that it's like, why are these major magazines writing about it? And I think what I find to be objectionable about labeling people in this way is it tends to be viewed as a static state, and the idea that it's on a spectrum is kind of taken out of the equation. So in my youth, I haven't been to a psychologist. I probably still carry plenty of psychological diagnoses at this point, who knows. In my youth, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, general anxiety disorder. There were a couple others that I kind of flew under the radar on. That was more of a judgment call of my therapist that I had. Her name was Lori, and she was so wonderful. I worked with her when I first started going to therapy when I was right on the edge of turning 18. And she did something for me that I didn't realize the value of at the time, where she gave me enough of the validation of the diagnoses to have a map, but didn't give so much where it would cripple me, or that I would start to lean on it like some kind of protection or a coping mechanism. So she did give me diagnoses, and we let those diagnoses kind of lead the way as far as treatment goes. So the thing about diagnoses that tends to kind of fall by the wayside is that these largely are not static states. Not only are they fluid, but they also exist on a spectrum. So any person, and I wholeheartedly believe this, any person that has a diagnosis can choose to become healthier, to become more well than they presently are when they're given the diagnosis. So back to that buzzword that I really don't like, that narcissist word. So narcissism is a spectrum, okay? It's not just a word with a definition where this person is unable to express empathy. There is more at play that's going on with people that are on the narcissist spectrum. And to be clear, everyone is on it. Everyone has a plot somewhere on that narcissism spectrum. At a certain point, we experience wounding, and sometimes that ego is so thick and so controlling that we do things that are not kind. We do things that, if we did have our hearts turned on all the way and our guards down, we would never do those things to people or to ourselves. So narcissism is a spectrum, and where does it come from? The narcissistic wounding that produces those sets of behaviors comes from, generally speaking, things that happened in our childhood where we were put in so much pain, or such a state of loss or neglect or abuse or rejection or codependency, that we had to shut off part of what allows us to feel. Because in shutting off that part that allows us to deeply feel, it allows us to survive. And unfortunate as it is, survival is priority number one. Like, if you don't survive, the game's over. There's nothing to worry about in adulthood about being a narcissist or dating a narcissist if you don't make it through childhood. So these people, us, the people who have experienced wounding, start to take on a set of behaviors. And some of these behaviors where our emotions are dampened because we use coping mechanisms like drugs or like alcohol or like your phone or like dating apps. All those things that allow you to anesthetize yourself to discomforts of the world, discomforts within your own body, start to erode away at our ability to feel deeply within ourselves and therefore empathize with people around us. So in that way, if someone truly commits to getting better, whether it's me and working through codependent wounding or someone else who's maybe a little bit at a different place on that narcissism spectrum, if they commit to it, it's absolutely possible. The important thing is, and if you're watching this video, you probably wouldn't identify yourself as a narcissist, but you might look at someone in your life and peg them as a narcissist or someone with narcissistic wounding. The only important thing that you need to know going forward is that as much as you love this person, you do not get to control them or choose if they heal or when they heal or what that healing looks like or the steps that they need to take on their journey. All you get to worry about is yourself. And that is one of the tough truths that all of us need to come upon if we're really going to genuinely heal ourselves and drive the ship and steer the boat. If I'm not in my own lane, taking care of myself and making choices based on the present moment and based on things that are right for me, I'm always going to be turning outside and bitching about who's treating me this way and who's treating me that way or what happened, in this particular situation. A lot of those things are beyond my control. And as I go through this process of turning inward and looking at my own narcissistic wounding, because whether you identify as a codependent or an empath, let's face it, another harsh truth, you fall somewhere on that narcissism spectrum that makes you a match to it. The only thing that you need to worry about is what do you need to do inside of your own self to not be a match to that. And so the steps in that process are going to include genuinely taking stock of the people in your life, and if they're not helping you get to a healthier place, you need to be the one to put up the boundary and not make them do it. They don't know. You need to have your own boundary and use your own voice and speak up, okay? Even if that means lovingly stepping away from people, okay? You don't get to control them or how they move through life. You get to control who's in your inner circle, who has access to you. The other things that you'll need to do in order to heal your own wounds is to put 100% of the focus on you and what your patterns are, the things that you are doing to attract these situations, the things that you or doing or not doing to attract and to allow these situations and to start to move in another direction. So for me, that was Al-Anon meetings and genuinely taking the healing slowly. It might mean that you don't date for a couple of years, or that when you do date, you go really slow in relationships so that you can figure out what your needs and your own best interests are. There's going to be an element of figuring out what you actually do like, what you actually do want, And there's going to be a lonely phase of, if the people that you're attracting are not aligned with where you want to go, you need to say no. You need to either keep that as a distant friendship if you really value that person and your connection, or if it's a dating relationship, you're out. You don't wait for, their change to happen. You allow them to be as they are, and you keep focused on yourself. You keep focused on, what do I want? What are the wholesome things that I need to do for myself to promote healing? What are the habits that I need to build? Because whether it's something like codependency recovery, or empath recovery, or just coping with life in general, or mental illness, in positive psychology, they teach us about, it looks like a pizza pie, it's a happiness chart, and 40% of our happiness is based on, I believe it's life circumstances, which you can't control. Or no, that's 50%. 10% is like your genetic set point, but then another 40%, so it's split up 50, 10, 40. That other 40% is happiness based upon your habits. So let's say that life is shit and like that 50% sucks, and genetically you're predisposed to have life suck. You still have 40% that you can work with that's predicated on your habits, your lifestyle, doing things that you enjoy, staying true to yourself. Again, it's a learning process. It takes a while, but that's a huge chunk of your life that you can affect. And the interesting thing about epigenetics, which is a relatively new area of science, basically the premise behind epigenetics is, low battery mode, okay. Epigenetics is, you come into the world, you're born with whatever you got. The circumstances that you were born into have flipped on, like light switches, a set of behaviors, or a set of qualities, or predispositions of various kinds. Epigenetics believes that through learning to master things like your nervous system, you can take those light switches and start to flip them in the other direction, flip them off. And so by taking the reins on that 40% of your happiness that you are in control of, you can actually change your disposition in life. That 40% worth of your happiness starts to actually alter that 10% sliver that you came in with, okay? So now that happiness pizza pie is starting to expand, where you can actually change how life is for you. You can change how, on a deep level, not just surfacey bullshit where it's like, I'm gonna be an optimist now, life was shit and now life's great. Like actual deep healing on your lifestyle, so that you have done enough of the work to take ownership and control of your nervous system, learn how to calm yourself down, and thus climb into a higher perspective of seeing life for what it is and making choices based on however the present happens to be that are going to yield you more happiness in the future. So, I'm trying to keep these videos under 15 minutes so I can load them directly onto YouTube. I'm going to stop talking now. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your questions are. If there's something I skipped over, I didn't lesson plan today. I just wanted to talk. So if there's something I left out, do let me know. I love you so much. You can affect your happiness. You can affect your change. You can change your mental health in all of your situations. I love you so much.